Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Inkylesconvo, and I just realized you can see the Batman stuff. Just forget about this. This is just like a permanent, not a semi-permanent, is that the word? Semi-permanent setup, just when it comes to like, people moving in and helping family members out and things like that. Now, today's guest is somebody that I've been trying to get on the show, and on my end, obviously she's been really busy, but on my end, it's been, it's been hard to like juggle things and things. We'll get into that. You'll soon see why, I should say, is a good way to put it. But anyway, today's guest is Keely Watson. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm great. No, it's good. It's good to have you on the show. It's good to finally have you on the show. But now, with you being obviously we'll get into your past and stuff like that, but just something you said to me before that you're currently working on the Olympics. Is that right?
I am working on the Olympics. Yeah, I've had a bit of a whirlwind few weeks really. I started off at the beginning of this year just working on like TV football, so weekly working on Football Focus, which sort of consisted of making feature VTs for the program, and then and I don't have to go into detail on that. So I'm an assistant producer, to put that out there now. So it's basically my job. If you're a content producer, when you're an assistant producer, you make content. If it's for TV, you're making features for television. If it's digital, you can be making social videos, social content, videos for the website, highlights, etc. But basically, to put it straight, my job, what I do now, I've been doing it for about 9 months, but I've been doing it on sort of semi-permanent contracts. So it was like I went for an interview last year and got like a 9-month attachment as like a promotion from what my original job was at the BBC. And yeah, essentially I basically got my job as assistant producer as a permanent staff contract at the BBC, which meant that I've been thrown on to being on the Olympics in the last couple of weeks, which has been exciting, but sort of wasn't like sort of the plan. I initially started out at the start of the year, but I'm on that now, and I've got that security that I've got like a permanent assistant producer job at BBC Sport, which is great. So yeah, working on the Winter Olympics this evening, 12 a.m. till 8 a.m. in the morning. And well, I did a shift on it last week actually, to be fair. So I haven't been there for the whole thing, so I can't take the whole credit for the whole thing, but I'm just dabbling in, and I'll be. Yeah, don't know what I'll be covering this evening, but I went in the other day and they're like, right, you're doing sort of like sort of freestyle alpine skiing, and I was like, okay. Sometimes you get put on something like, I don't actually know much about this, but obviously working in BBC Sport, you work across such a range of sports. Everyone's got the specialities. Some of the winter sports, they don't come around very often, so we don't always. Not everybody's the expert. It's sometimes about learning sort of on the job, but sometimes realistically, job as assistant producer, it's storytelling. You're there to tell a story. So, that's what I can do. That's my skills, that I'm able to tell a story in like an effective way. So realistically, you can sort of apply that to any sport, even if you don't know much about it, and still tell that story in the most sort of exciting way. So yeah, don't know what I'll be working on this evening yet. Not sure what the schedule is or what I'll be sort of sitting across. But it should be good. Yeah. Be fun. It's nice to do like a range of sports, really.
Yeah. Before we get into your the obviously where you eventually started and things like that, where like we were having this debate, and because I'm still learning, I was like a late bloomer, you could say, in media. So we were talking about it. Instead of doing 3 years, my story is instead of doing 3 years down south, we're doing, because of COVID, and that kind of knocked it. My local college just took us on and was like, you study up here and then you can go down south next year. So it's quite good. But we were having a debate yesterday about what is it exactly that a producer does? Like, I know you're telling a story, but we got asked, and I was like, I honestly don't know. I should probably know nowadays, but I actually don't.
Yeah. I can I'll sort of explain. If it's easy, I'll explain a little bit about sort of the structure and the different jobs briefly, because sometimes, like Len just asked, sometimes you refer to things, and when it helps to know how it works and what the different jobs are, especially if I'm sort of telling a bit of a story, because then it sort of makes more sense. But you sort of start off in the industry generally as a runner, So essentially that job is sort of, you're there to help out, and you're a bit like the assistant on the production, and you're helping out everybody. If that can be, I don't know, you're running tapes, you're running scripts, you're getting coffees, tea, food for any sort of talent that you have and guests that you have in. So you sort of start in on that, and then from there, there's sort of like two routes in sort of media production, really. There's like production management route, and there's the editorial. Okay, and the production management is like the people that work in production management essentially sort out the finance, the budgets, the management of the whole production, sort of booking the staff, payments, all that sort of side of that. The holding the fort, really. And then it's the editorial people that are sort of doing the creative and the storytelling and making essentially the content. So I actually did a bit of a weird route. I went firstly as like in production management, because that's more of a junior level job if you work as a production management assistant. So I sort of did that really instead of a runner. So I was sort of assisting the production management side. But I always knew I wanted to work editorially. So I later sort of progressed. I got a researcher's job, which is pretty much what it says in the tin. You're researching content, you're researching ideas, you're researching the, if it's the production or the program that you're working on, or digital and radio, you're researching within your little team. And then after that, it's the assistant producer, what I do now. And then obviously the producers, directors, you sort of go down different routes then. Obviously that's more senior. So an assistant producer essentially is, you are basically a content producer. So I worked across digital and TV since working at the BBC and since working in media generally, and it doesn't sort of change too much between like TV and digital. Is very sort of intertwined. You're making video content at the end of the day, and that can sort of consist of two ways. If it's in TV, sometimes it's suggesting ideas for features of programs, and then you're going out and setting up those shoots, and you're actually going out on the shoot with a camera operator, etc. And you're like a bit like directing on that shoot, and you're like, might be, if you're working with an actual contributor, you're sometimes asking the questions if you don't have a reporter there with you. But essentially you're like sort of the producer on that shoot. And then you might come back and then you'll work with an editor to sort of like cut that piece, that video, so it's ready to go out and broadcast. Where alternatively, when I've worked, so I've done that with TV. I hope that's sort of clear as like a top line, what sort of TV assistant producer does, or AP. And then in digital, when I've worked within, working now and this evening, working in the digital teams on the Winter Olympics, I'll actually edit the content myself. So I'll like watch, I don't know, I'm not sure, I could be on curling, say, okay, this evening, and I would literally edit on like Premiere Pro highlights of, say, the curling final, for example. And then I'm watching that and something really funny happens. Well, I'm like, oh great, that'll work for TikTok. So then I have to edit another version that works for TikTok. And you get also edit bits for social media, like to Instagram, Twitter as well, on top of the TikTok stuff, and maybe the wider highlights, what would go on like YouTube, etc. So I would edit stuff for YouTube. Whereas like from working with TV, you normally work with an actual sort of professional editor that edits all the time, just because there's lots of other sort of obstacles to go through to make sure that it's sort of right for broadcast, essentially. It's going on BBC One. So yes, that role differs. An assistant producer differs across what teams you've been on. I've been quite lucky to work across different teams, across TV and digital, but I've just that's what I've wanted to do. So I've wanted to become like an all-round assistant producer. I want to be like a content producer that can sort of do everything. I'd like to be able to make the best content myself, if that's been filming it, editing it, directing it. It's always just sort of been my sort of ambition that I can learn to work across different platforms and make content across platform, TV, digital. That's just something I've wanted to do, essentially. Some assistant producers just work primarily only on digital, or only on radio, or only on TV, but we're going into a bit of a, we're moving into the digital age, and the TV landscape and the, media landscape is changing quite a lot. And I do feel that people, it's a competitive industry as it is. I think to be the best at your job, you've got to be multi-skilled, I think, or else you're going to sort of become less employable as you go on sort of through your career. Yeah. So, that's definitely sort of been my recent ambition, is to, sort of dip my toes in many things. But now I've got this sort of permanent contract that I've recently been given as an assistant producer, means that, I'm able to do that, and I'm sort of got a nice secure place like in the BBC to sort of learn and navigate around the business essentially. But as I sort of reference to like, I've got this permanent contract, just to like sort of sideline to BBC, it's quite a complicated institution in the sense that a lot of the contracts, a lot of people are freelance that work for BBC, so they don't necessarily work all the time for BBC. But a lot of people, they employ people for a certain production or a certain show or a certain event. Therefore, a lot of the contracts they offer are like fixed terms, so they might be like 6 months, 3 months, 9 months, 12, 18. And you always have to apply for these sort of shorter contracts, and then sort of they are more or less frequent as permanent jobs. Therefore, that is your permanent base, and that's your permanent job within the business, is like a permanent contract. And I was lucky to get a permanent contract after being at the BBC after about 12 months of being there. So that was from 2017, 2018. It was in 2018, sorry. I got a permanent contract in 2019, but that was as a production management assistant. So it was more a junior job, and that was like my first job in the BBC. And then since then, I've just had different attachments. So I've had different jobs. I've still had this like permanent role underneath all that, that you're sort of tied to, if that makes sense. But it's been great because in the last month, I've been able to get an AP job at permanent level, which is obviously like good for,
Yeah, exactly. And just to something and well done on yourself as well, because I know there's a lot of people, as I say, I know of a lot of people that would want to work for the BBC that necessarily have tried and haven't gotten it. So good for yourself. But you, as you were saying, with it being a competitive industry as well, is that there's that thing as well as what we were getting, we were speaking about as in the couple of guys I know, and they were saying that it does seem to nowadays you can go and get a degree in that, great, fantastic. It's obviously hard work. It's not easy to get a degree, but you do need to have that outside appearance now. There's like, whether that be a following or podcast, YouTube, or anything, as long as it's on the right path, there does need to be like, what would you say to that one as well? Actually, would you say that you kind of do need to have like that part of you as well as the degree, or what's your opinion?
100%. Listen, Kyle, like, I'll be straight up honest. Like, I was looking at this really good university. I went to University of Manchester, like, had an amazing time. Did that benefit me in my career? Not one. It didn't add anything to where I am now. Honestly, I feel like I could have got where I am now without that. 100%. I can straight up say that. I studied English language, and I sort of, well, it was nothing related to sort of me in media production whatsoever, in content making at all. I mean, I chose a more sort of general degree because I actually just wanted to go to the University of Manchester, and I even though that I chose that and I knew it wasn't benefiting the wider sort of where I wanted to be in my career, I sort of knew at 18 before that, well, probably way before that, I sort of wanted to work in media. And I always loved to work in BBC. I sort of knew that before I even went to uni, but I still made a choice that wasn't really a step in the right direction. I could have gone to maybe Salford Uni instead of media production and be sat next to, work, studying next to the BBC in the offices. But I sort of just wanted to go to University of Manchester. Not sure why really at the time, but it was the best decision I made because I, made amazing friends, made an amazing partner from being there, and enjoyed every minute. I've learned a lot, and it pushed me out of my comfort zone. But absolutely, to your point, that the stuff actually in your side is the things that make you stand out. And don't get me wrong, it's great, get a great degree, and when you're there, you make the most of it, and you want to get best grade possible. But a lot of everyone else is sort of doing that as well. And I think nowadays, in like this society, competitive in most industries, in particularly, obviously, the media industry has always been like, has been sort of, everyone knows there's quite a few obstacles to getting in there, and a lot of it is everything you do in your free time, and that is, if that's a, like you said, that's a podcast, having YouTube show, or anything really. That's just sometimes just reaching out and volunteering, shadowing people when you are studying, and making those contacts, because at the end of the day, like, it's who you know. And I remember when I was at school, I grew up in a small town, like, people didn't work. I didn't know anyone that worked in the media and the BBC. It just wasn't like a thing, where I was from. And I remember even telling people when I was a bit younger, oh yeah, I want to work in TV, blah, blah, blah. You just get a real job, sort of thing. I'm like, yeah. And for me, like, I just remember when I was younger, and I remember a woman saying that to me when I was at like some like family friends barbecue there. It really just stuck with me, and it just like, I am a bit stubborn like that anyway, and I'm just like, no, I will do that, and I'm very much believe myself. But when I in the right headspace and I focus that this is what I want, I feel like I can make it happen, and I feel like anybody has that ability to do that. And sometimes it's that will and desire to commit to what you're thinking is sort of the hardest thing, and just to have that faith in yourself that you can do it. And like I said, it's sort of just, it's setting that goal and being like, yeah, I want to work in this. And it's sort of putting them steps in place. I mean, a lot of it's just finding what you enjoy, like growing up, I like playing sport, enjoyed watching sport, enjoyed watching TV. You're like, all right, why can't I have a job in like the things that are my hobbies? That is what it is. And that might be media, it might be something else, but it's just, I just think you go to work every day, you spend so much of your life working. Why do we not, of course you want, it complicates for everyone. I get that, but like, want to make your working life as enjoyable as possible, and it makes it so much easier when you're actually passionate, when you actually care, because getting up and going to work is just so much easier. Everyone has bad days, don't get me wrong, and everyone's like, oh, can't be bothered today or whatever, but when 95% of the time you're pretty buzzing to go to work, that is the one. And I just think, yeah, when you're younger, just look at yourself and be like, school sort of put things on you, like, oh, do this. And I think it can be disheartening for some kids at school that aren't naturally gifted and test smart, as I say, like people that aren't good at doing a test, because that's all it is. It's when you master the art of like doing an exam, that's a skill within itself. And I wasn't like, don't get me wrong, I was pretty average at school, like, but you always want, as any young person, you want to be able to stand out. You want to be good at something. You want to find what you're good at. And I think that'd be my message to anyone that is younger. It's just like finding what you're passionate about, what you care about, and think, right, how can I make this into a job? That is the thing. And I think it's just noticing that when you are younger, and just knowing what you care about and seeing what steps you can to make that into a career one way or another. And for me, I love sport. Wasn't going to be an athlete, you sometimes know, but okay, well, how can I get into sport some other way and make it happen? And it's a big world. Yeah, what I mean? There's a lot of jobs out there, isn't there? There's a lot of jobs out there. There's a lot of jobs you don't know about, and I didn't know about any sort of jobs. And it's sort of sometimes you just got to do your own digging.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask that there. Like, you were saying about how you love sport and things like that. But was that, you're saying you weren't, I'm not saying this because I didn't actually know you back then, but you were saying you weren't very athletic, is a nice way to put it. So is that why you didn't get involved in sport, like as in playing it? Or if you could have done it, would you have gotten involved that way as well, like a player or coach or something?
I did. I've always played football since growing up. I've always played football, and it's always my sport. Football is my sport. I've spent the majority of my time in BBC working on football, men's, women's football. So I've always played that since I was younger, and I played at uni. That was at university. That was a big part of I was the captain football at university, and I really committed to that, probably more than my studies in some ways, because that's what I enjoyed. And and I play a bit of golf as well now that I sort of play less football, play more golf. But I, always something I'm really passionate about. I've got a heart condition. I could have never been an athlete for the obvious reason that I physically couldn't, So not that, and when you sort of know that, when I had a heart condition my whole life, so you never even think being an athlete is never even like an option, because you know that it just would never be possible. So you don't even commit to caring about wanting to do something because you just can't. But I still grew up playing sport and enjoying playing sport and watching it. So there you sort of think, oh, yeah, maybe there's something in sort of that content. You see presenters on, you grow up and obviously they weren't social media, but you watch TV and people present these programs. Oh, that's great! Like they're living like the best life, and they're just watching sport. And this is even before you sort of know all the jobs that go into making a TV program or content that you watch as well. But yeah, just for me, I just think it was just that sort of marrying up the things that I sort of cared about. And I remember I chose media as an A level. I hadn't done any sort of media studies up until this point. But I sort of did English and maths, random combo with this, and theatre studies, because I just enjoyed doing drama and theatre at school. And then I chose media studies as well as an A level. Never obviously did much, never learned so much about media as such. And I remember one project where it was like the first big project that we had to do. I had to sort of create a music video, so to come up with like the idea, and you actually had to go out and film it yourself and then edit it. So you were doing that entire content production process. I'd never done anything like this before. And like I said, all through school, like GCSEs, I was just very average. And for me, it wasn't satisfying me enough, because I was just like average at all the subjects. And I got like 100% on that module, and I was just like, oh my God. I was like, I'm actually quite good. Do you know what I mean? You sort of, especially from an academic perspective, I was like, I actually got a good grade. And I think actually just because I fully committed and I fully just put myself in it. And like all throughout school and college and uni, I never really did that. I never like 100% give myself to the studies. But I knew I had it in me, and especially from doing that project in media and doing so well in that subject, I knew that I had it in me to sort of, that I could just fully commit to something and really excel. And I just knew when it came to when I was working, and sort of, I knew I'd just be able to sort of give 100%. And yeah, I've really, and sort of, it's just because I enjoy it, and that's what it is, and that's what it is with people. Every person will give 100% to some aspects of their life, whatever it is. I don't know. People just going to work in the morning. Sometimes it's people dealing with their children. So every element of their life, someone gives 100% and excels at something. So everyone's got that ability to do that. It's just applying it to like the right thing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you as well. It's like finding your niche or something. It's when you're creating things as well. You need to find like where you slot in life as well. But I do want to say sorry about hearing about your heart condition. I had an old friend that had a heart murmur, and he tried to play football for Glenrothes, which is like a local one. How far away is it from here? Oh, it's like well over an hour away now, I suppose. But anyway, it's near here somewhere. And he used to play, and then he had to like stop playing football, and he stopped playing it professionally. He still plays football to this day. But I knew how he went through it. So sorry to hear about that as well. But
that's good.
Right. Yeah. Let's get into like your past a little bit, because we've talked about what you do presently, but let's talk about your past before some other things. I'm definitely starting this one. You were a sales associate at Office Shoes as well. Was that after?
Yes.
Was that after uni or college, or was that before it? Or
that was at uni. So yeah, I hadn't been at uni too long, and then I got a job. That was sort of like my first. I mean, it wasn't my first proper job. When I was at school, when I was at sixth form. So I had a job at this point. Started sixth form, and I was pretty good at being involved in like all the extracurricular stuff at sixth form, and like all different clubs and societies. I was always been good at that, being all the additional stuff that comes as well with like the school and the work. I enjoyed like taking part in those different activities and stuff, and because of that reason, and I was like on the like school like leadership sort of team, like committee, and they was like, oh, there's some jobs available in the morning, to like, it's hilarious, this is my first job. It was like from 6:30 in the morning to 8:30, like before school started. Like, you know, the buffering machines that you like, what the caretakers use in school. Literally, I had to do that in the sports hall and like in the sixth form area. Like, that was my job. I was paid to do that every day. Bit hilarious. That was my first job. I was literally like buffering the machine from 6:30 to 8:30. So I was like, I got into a good rhythm of being like quite hard working when I was in sixth form. So my mum and dad were like, no, you need to get a job. You need to get extra money. You're just sponging off us all the time. So they made me get that, and I sort of had a good work ethic from them. And then when I actually went to uni, got a job in office. Yet again, knew I had to sort of get a job when I got to uni, really get a bit of extra cash. I love shoes, particularly trainers. I've got quite a good trainer collection. So I was like starting off then. I thought, right, I'm gonna get a job or work in a shop, something that works with my studies, and hopefully I just wanted to work somewhere that I was like actually liked the brand, you know, and cared about what I was sort of selling. So yet again, just wanted to find a job that I would enjoy, because I enjoyed what I'd be working with. So yeah, I sort of just sent my CV around, walked into all these different shops, and just the places where I actually did shop, basically, just to give out my CV, and that was great. I actually really enjoyed those works. It's just a bit of a laugh, and making a bit of extra commission, selling shoes, getting good discount. Happy days.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a shoe head as well, but I'm not going to say what brands I have. I'm going to ask you first. What kind of shoes? What kind of shoes are you into then?
Oh, I'm not gonna lie. I've go from like Jordans, Dunks. Just I've got a few superstars, some older superstars, Adidas superstars. I've got some of the like more like, should we say, going out nicer trainers I've splashed out and things like Alexander McQueen's and Louboutins and things like that are just a bit extortionate and overpriced. Got quite a few pairs of Yeezys. Yes, a lot, and some other like more just niche obscure shoes that I picked up, like a pair of ones picked up in California. They're a bit like these Nike shoes that are a bit like a slip on. They look like a bit like a Vans, but they're actually a Nike. I feel like I've never seen them anywhere else again. I don't really wear them. They're quite similar. But and just Converse, lots of the shoes. It's a I need to be able to hold back.
Oh, and say it's a problem. I've got, I think Yeezys are like my number one shoe. Jordans, and then Jordans are like my kind of like go-to gym shoes, or Gazelles. It depends really. It all depends. I'm really like trying to stick to them, because when you try and branch out, it just gets like the prices just go up, and you're like, oh god, if you get a mark on them, it's like the end of your life. It's
I know.
It's a huge problem. Shoe addiction's a problem for everybody.
I know. And one thing actually, when we were talking about offers and stuff, at the time, I mean, it was sort of when I worked in office, because someone who used to work to there were basically working in Offspring, which is Offspring and Office, obviously the same company, but Offspring's in Selfridges. So I ended up getting a job after I finished Office. I ended up getting a job at Offspring. So I worked at Office for a couple of years, and I ended up then working in Offspring, just all trainers, like super passionate about that. And while I was there, I ended up picking up a few Yeezys, and I was like selling some on the side. So like at the start, when I was studying, and like just after when I first graduated, it was like the trainer sales were actually helping me through like when I was getting into real life. Like when I left uni and I was having to like, still carry on living in Manchester, like working off a part-time wage, not great, but the trainer sales, selling the Yeezys got me through. Honestly, that helped me set up in the media industry, to be honest, because it gave me a little bit of a like financial foundation. So
yeah,
Yeezys,
thank you, Kanye. Yeah. The Yeezys are like the thing I love is, I know it's not about shoes, but thing I love about them is they're so comfy. It's hard to people see the prices of them, but I'm like, but they're comfy though. Like there's a whole nother, it's comfy on your feet. It's like walking on a cloud. Kanye was so right when he said that.
It is. We can do another podcast just about trainers.
Yeah, I'll hit you up after this. We'll definitely hit a special episode. But because it's, you went to the Edinburgh, it was in Edinburgh. I think it was in Edinburgh. It was the Network Talent Scheme.
The TV
did you move
festival.
up to Edinburgh, or was it just through them, or?
it was just through them. So I was working, so after I graduated, I was working in Offspring just as part-time, getting in that extra cash, selling them trainers, just funding my way, like just living in Manchester basically. But at this point, why I sort of, some of my friends graduated and got straight into like a grad job, etc. I knew that now that I was like, no, this is my chance of getting into the media. I remember saying to my dad, I was like, right, Dad, I was like, at the time I was 21, I was like, Dad, I'll be in the BBC by the time I'm 25. I felt that was quite like, that wasn't an ambitious goal at all. Like now I look back, I'm like, I should have been a bit more like, I was giving myself quite a lot of slack there. But I thought, no, I need to start, reaching out, doing a bit of work experience. Because to be honest, I didn't make the most of doing that when I was at uni. I didn't do much of that when I was studying. I did a bit of stuff with like within the university, like they do lots of like media clubs, etc. But I never sort of were reaching out to any like independent companies across Manchester and stuff. So when I graduated working in Offspring, I did do that. I sort of remember knocking on doors in the town centre of Manchester. Like I researched a list of every like media production company. They're like just a small independent company, or they could have even been a post-production company. Like I just basically got a long list of like 10 different companies, and I printed off my CV and I just like knocked on the door. So it's all very pre-COVID times and all. Just knocked on the door and was a bit like, like introduce myself, like, hi, can I just hand in my CV just to looking for a bit of work experience or shadowing, etc. And I was quite lucky actually. There was one of the companies got back to me and they were like, we really like that you came in and like said hello, knocked on the door, and we're like, we'd like to offer you a bit of to come in the office and do a bit of like office running. So you sort of go in to get, they were like a production service company. So it was their job to sort of plan, might be a company who they were called Sugar Free TV. So they gave me my first big break. So like big shout out to them. But they basically sort of like, if a production was coming from London and they wanted to do some filming in the Northwest, they would use this service company, and the service company would sort of like help with the locations and provide sort of staffing up in the North. So it was a good way to like meet people on the entire production. And they'd sometimes want me to like go out and get supplies and sort of just help with booking things. And so yeah, I went in the office one day for that, and I just really got on, and they kept giving me like extra little shifts and extra little bits of work, so on side of me doing my job at Offspring. So it was great, really. That gave me that foot in the door. And then I heard about this thing called the network, like you asked, the network talent scheme. I think it was some research, or maybe it was on social media. And basically the network talent scheme is amazing because it's based it's only a week up in Edinburgh, but it's a crash course to working in television and media. And the point of it is that they take a group of, I think, 30 or 40 people from across the UK all into Edinburgh, and you're basically working with like industry professionals. And like it was what's it called, the guy that does Charlie Booker. It was like he was there. He did a bit of a workshop with us. Like he did a workshop with like the head of Channel 4, like content makers, like big like famous directors. And essentially like you're also like, it's a bit like a networking event as well, because it's like people are there like showcasing their work, doing talks, not just to us but also to industry professionals. So loads of people are there from across the industry. So it's just a really good opportunity to sort of like introduce yourself, get tips from people. You do a bit of a CV masterclass, and like just ways of helping you get in the industry. And the point is that afterwards they'll help connect you with different companies and let you get those little, first steps in the door in the industry. So I got on that. I think it helped that I'd sort of proved that I'd been reaching out already and done little bits of work running, like I said, for Sugar Free and stuff in Manchester. That really helped. And yeah, when I went on the network, that for me was that gave me my foot in the door at the BBC, essentially, because this is where when I referred to before, it's like, it's who you know. It really is who you know. And like I said, I didn't have any contacts, but I made the contacts, and by making the contacts, it gives you the job. So I remember there was a CV workshop, and it was actually with somebody who was from the talent team at BBC. So they're essentially responsible for the recruitment of BBC. That's their job, and they were doing CV workshop. And I thought, right, well, okay, we're doing a CV workshop, but I was like, I need to speak to this woman. She works in BBC Sport. It's like perfect for me. I need to reach out to her like this. I really want to work in BBC Sport. Like, how can I make it happen? And it was great. Like, she was just really helpful in terms of like how to present the CV and how to go about applying for like work placements in the BBC. And it just meant that they did like maybe 6 months after I think I was on the network, there was these applications open for work experience in BBC Sport, and it was for the Commonwealth Games in 2018. And yeah, I got on. And I don't doubt in my mind, I might have had the best application, put it that way. But I already met this woman. She knew I was really keen. She knew what I was like face to face. Sort of like, she will have been responsible for taking in those applications and giving people the placement. So like, that's why I said like the networking and who you know is the right thing, because it's so much easier to get a job when you've met someone, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is as well is that you always have to do these like work ever since I've even spoken to people from Bauer Media, and they've all said the same thing. You have to have like the free work, as they say, like you're willing to like volunteer and stuff, because it's the only way. Because how are they supposed to know who you are from a bit of paper, or
Exactly.
even your social? That's why like the whole that's why a question as well as that before I actually say what I was going to say. Do you think necessarily that especially nowadays with the media industry being so, I know this sounds like common sense, but with it being so online versus the telly and radio and things like that, do you think you necessarily do need to watch what like you post on social media nowadays and who you are and how you present yourself and things like that?
I think so. Listen, I haven't been in a position, yet where I'm sort of recruiting people myself. So I wouldn't know, but put it this way, if you've got a reputation on social media, and if people, and that reputation comes in two ways. People can, like you said, you can be famous on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, or, you can have these profiles, you can be doing these shows like you're doing, and these things can go in one or two ways. Like, it can be the best thing because you're showing that you're doing something that's super positive and, and great, making great content, or it could be super negative. If you're known in a negative way, like on social media, or you're posting things that are somewhat controversial, then absolutely that will have an effect on recruitment and how, people getting jobs. There's this line of like, is it freedom of speech? You'll be able to say and do what you want. But at the end of the day, if you're putting stuff out there for everybody to see and read what you're saying, you're putting yourself in a position to be judged. And if that's going to be from someone that's going to offer you a job, or someone that might just, I don't know, someone that's one of your friends, like that's what you do. It's like I said, it can be your best, like social media can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And at the end of the day, you're in control of that narrative, and it is the best thing, because it gives people a platform to like yourself doing this, that like it gives people a platform to make whatever content they want, which is so good. But also at the same time, it gives people a platform to be really shitty on Twitter and be mean to people. And like, put it this way, I don't know if someone that's recruiting is looking through everybody's Twitter and Instagram page. I really can't add to that. But if they do say, or if someone's come in and done a shift or the work experience in the office, and someone just go, oh, let's look and look, like you do, like everyone has like a little Insta stalk or whatever, like everyone does it. And if you find yourself doing that, and you're like, oh no, this says pretty controversial things, you think, why do people don't want to, it's like you're building your own persona, aren't you, at the end of the day? And that is, so I do think in that sense it can affect you getting a job, if that's the right thing. I don't know, I'm not the one to sort of, I think, so I not just think in media and stuff, I think a lot of, I've heard it a lot, and sometimes you know, obviously in recruitment and other areas of in different sort of career paths where they generally do sort of like vet people on social media, you know, but I don't know if that happens within TV and media as such, but it does happen, and it's sort of one of the things. It's inevitable. You sort of can't control that, even if people think that's right or not. You can't prevent people from doing it. So like, I just think, you know.
I feel you as well, and what you're saying is as people will know that have seen this and watched the podcast before, I'm very like, you do, I think you do, because at the end of the day, it doesn't come down to like, you know, for example, if, you know, well, use yourself, you know, you're putting something, obviously you work for the BBC, so at the end of the day, somebody could phone them up and be like, listen, you know, Keely's posting this online, you know, how do you have this person? And it goes from the complaints department, I don't know how BBC works, I'm just take a wild guess here, the complaints department, and then it'll go to your department, then somebody will come to you and be like, why are you posting stuff online? And
well, oh no, that is a massive thing. It's at the moment, in terms of working for the BBC, it's impartial. You're working for an impartial institution, and we've had recent training within the last 12 months, and social media has come into that much more of a focus there. Especially if you're working on editorial content like myself, you're responsible for making content. We are told you shouldn't be somewhat like politically biased on social media. You shouldn't be sort of saying controversial things. You know, you still need to be reflective of what your role is at the BBC, and that's just what comes with the job. You know, you can't be a journalist, or you can't be someone that's presenting, I don't know, reporting on the news about, you know, being in Westminster. Then you go on later that night and you're like, slating the Tory party, or slating the Labour Party as such, you know, and saying I particularly stand with this, I'm not with this. You can't do that, because that's what you get with the BBC. You know, you've got to be impartial to certain subjects, and it's complex and it's complicated, and there's, you know, been recent debate recently at the BBC about, you know, you're sort of told you're not supposed to be also making political standpoints and going to marches or protests. And there was a big sort of debate around, and there was sort of people being concerned in what we can't sort of go to, I don't know, LGBT marches and protests, and it's not about that. I mean, I think people sort of maybe got the wrong message from that. You know, the BBC doesn't discriminate against things that are like, you know, that are wrong, essentially. You know, it's racism, sexism, like homophobia. The BBC doesn't, you know, it's not impartial on things like that. But you know, you can't be seen to be making political sort of certain political statements. You can't be seen to be at political marches, and that's sort of just what you get with the job. So that's why social media is important like that. And you sort of do, you know, there's been times that I have thought twice about sometimes what I post things, and that's not like, for example, I've got a lot of my bosses and things on Instagram who, you know, follow me and whatever, and that's not going to stop me from being on holiday and being like, oh, going out clubbing and putting videos on the club, because I think this is my personal profile as well. You know, I'm a normal person. I enjoy going out and living a life as well. Like if I'm on holiday, I'm going out doing whatever. I'm not going to hold back from posting stuff like that. I'm like, they're following my personal account. You know, that's simple as that. But there's been times where you sort of think, little things. I remember it was the American elections, and there's some really funny memes around about like Donald Trump. It's good. But like slating him. And I was like, I'm sharing these. I think sharing them. I was like, should I be sharing this? And I'm like, there's all that impartiality thing in terms of like, you know, American politics as well. And I'm like, I don't even work in news and politics, I work in sport. But I'm like, like, you sort of think twice, should I? Of course, everyone's got their own beliefs. But like, you can't be seen to be being, you know, one-sided a certain way, even if that's how you feel. You know, you just got to have a certain, you know, image and persona that you have to represent because you work for a company like the BBC. But yeah, there's a lot of like nuances in it. It's quite complex in terms of that wider impartiality thing with the BBC. But yeah, I guess overall, answering your question, like, yeah, I guess you sort of have to be aware of what you post.
Yeah, it's like as well as like the whole, you know, job side of it. It's like I think you said you had a partner as well. Am I quite right in saying that?
Yeah.
What you post on social media could come back to them, could come back to, like, you know, your mum, your dad, you know, any other siblings you have as well. So it's just that's another huge thing as well. It's like no matter what you say or do, there's more than a job. It's, you know, so and so said this. How could you not let them? But you understand what I mean. Like, how could you feel that it's acceptable not to say something and all that? But that's another road that.
100%. I mean, I don't know how it's sort of related to that, but it's just reminded me that last year I wrote an article for LGBT History Month, and I obviously work in video content, but it was a written article, some written pieces of something I've never done before. But I pitched an idea for something about Udi Simrani, who's she's basically African woman, and she was murdered for being a lesbian. Not 20 years ago, and yeah, there's lots of research on this sort of story. I thought this is a great story. It's not been widely sort of spoken about. And I thought, you know, this is a really good story and it's really topical. And I thought, I pitched it for an idea, but someone said, "Can you do it as a written piece?" And I'm not like, you know, I've not done loads of written stuff before, but I thought, they're like, no, you know, you can work with like a senior journalist. They'll help you like in terms of the structuring side of it. So I went ahead and did it, and I did some research. And I spoke to people who like family, people that knew her family, and people that set up like a Udi Simrani Foundation in Africa, and loads of stuff like that. And I wrote really article. I'm actually really, really proud of actually in the end. I thought it's really quite provocative in some ways, but really like bold, and the headline of the article was like Udi Simrani, the footballer murdered for being a lesbian. So it was for BBC Sport to just post that with a headline. I remember I had like a senior journalist called me the day before it was being publicised, and was like, right, listen, I just got to give you a heads up and be like, people might find you on social media and like might have something to say about the article just because obviously it's got your name next to it. And I was like, I'm not bothered. I thought, you know what, I'm not bothered because I thought I'm actually really proud of this, and like it's a great story. I'm telling someone's story on a big platform and on a sport platform as well, you know, with an audience that wouldn't necessarily read something like this. So I was quite proud of it. And don't get me wrong, like I got some amazing responses. There was 1 million people read the article, which is quite a lot for it. It is a lot for the sport sort of article of that sort of type. And you know, loads of great messages. But I remember like looking in my Instagram, my inbox, like, you know, where there's sort of like the messages that haven't come directly through to you. The requests, the requests. And there was like some guy just sent the most like abusive message. It was so bad. Like it's like this the worst sort of, and it just why this sort of reminded me, just out to your point, how you sort of like saying sometimes you ever want to go back to people and sort of, you know, you sort of that on social media, you want to, sometimes you want to defend yourself and you sort of have to, and I sort of was like, at the same time, I'm sort of the person that I would say something, you know, if someone said something to me, so, you know, I would say something back. So I think if someone's wrong, I would correct someone if someone's being unreasonable. I'm just that sort of person. But I looked at it and I was just like laughed actually. You know, sometimes you don't know how you're going to react to a moment like that, where someone is literally giving you like a load of hate in a really quite nasty way. You're sort of like, you don't know how you're going to react until you get that sort of message. But actually, I was surprised. I was sort of just a bit like, no. I was like, I actually don't bother because I know that I've done something quite good, you know, and the good outweighs the sort of bad, that I was like, you know what, let it slide. But it is interesting sort of that how, you know, it does make you wonder how different people, you know, it feels people in a different way. Like some people might want to go back to that person. Like, give them sort of abuse back, but I don't know. Yeah.
It comes. I've been one person that, like, throughout my life and that has been like off and on social media due to, like, people being a great way I can relay that to yourself is that I bet if that guy had seen you in the street, he wouldn't say that. Like,
100%.
Walk right past you. This is the thing that I was with, that I was, I've been off and on social media with people, and then, because I'm a type of person, like, if somebody replies back, like, if somebody gave me hate or something like that, I'd be like, okay, cool, I'll catch you around the street or something like that, not realizing what that actually meant at the time, because I was younger and I wasn't switched on properly. And it did get me a little bit of trouble by the amount of people that would just, like, completely ignore you and then completely talk about you to you, and on, like, I seen you today, you were wearing, I don't know, a blue jumper, I don't like blue, or all this, all this sort of nonsense stuff. It's but the fact that, like, they're on a simple thing, if it doesn't matter if the person's, like, straight, gay or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that, like, they actually wrote that. So it's awesome, to be honest with you. It's awesome. But you always get hate no matter what you do, because I think it comes down to the end of the day, he might be wanting to write for the BBC and be like, I can't do it, so how can I get you to stop doing it, is to give you hate to see if you just cut out and leave. And that side of it as well. It's crazy. 100%.
But and that's the same for you. Like, you said, you're doing what you're doing, and half of it's just the people don't have the courage to do that. I just think it is fun, and it just says so much about that individual that's doing that. But I actually don't really go on Twitter. I have it sometimes because I contact people through work, but I never post, and not that for any reason that, like, I don't know, feel like it's any sort of conversation that I have. I just don't like some of the toxic sort of environment that's created, and like the stuff that people say. I think that more than I get it happens on every platform, but I've seen it so much more on that one. And for me, I'm just like, I just don't like people's negativity. I don't get it. I wouldn't do it, and I just think, is it just these people just not content in their own life, and I just think you don't need to speak. Like, if it's not worth saying or if it's not nice, just don't say it at all. And like you said, it's just keyboard warriors at the end of the day, I
just remember, I was trying to think there when you were talking, I was like, what was the name of that program that the BBC were doing? I couldn't remember what it was called, but, like, anyway, it was on Facebook. I have a Facebook, obviously, for the podcast and that. It's a page, but I have the page, but I think it's got, like, who's it got on it? David and Owen, which are two boys. Owen's something to do with football, and David's, like, I don't know what he does, but anyway, two media guys. Shout out to you guys, I guess. But anyway, so when I was scrolling through that because they were wanting me to share something for them on the page, and then the BBC were looking for a presenter. Was it 3 presenters aged under 25 and one aged over 55? I could got the numbers wrong or didn't let us, but anyway. And I was like, I'm not going to 27. I was like, I'm not going to apply for that, but I'm going to read the comments because, well, it was like, it obviously had been posted hours before, but it was like 1 a.m. And I was, like, scrolling through it, and the amount of people that were slating the BBC and stuff like that. And somebody had commented on it. I really wanted to befriend the guy. Somebody had commented on it, being like, just to let you know, if any of you are trying to get a job for the BBC and you're writing this sort of stuff, well, let's see what happens. And I had like 480 comments, and I went to sleep, and I woke up in the morning and it had 275 comments. The amount of comments had been wiped completely because people were like, I just remembered that there. I should have probably brought that up earlier, but I was trying to think. It was crazy, the fact that, like, you can't. Yeah, you do need to watch. It's crazy. People blow my mind, to be honest. But anyway, you work for the BBC because you have a huge resume with the BBC. So you had an internship with in BBC Sport Work Placement. How did we'll do 2 parts. We'll do, like, what did you do, or how did you get it, and then what did you do? We'll do 2 parts of it.
No, cool. It's like I was saying, mainly it was going back to when I was on the network, and it was me sort of having that conversation with the person that was doing the CV masterclass, and she worked at the BBC. So it was just basically just from her giving me tips, and a bit of me sort of putting myself out there, being like, how do I work there? I really want to work there. I love sport, etc., etc., etc. And she sort of helped me how to do the application, and because she knew me and because she met me previously, we sort of when it came to applying, when the work placements came up, put in the application and sort of got a place from there, really. So it was basically from being at the networks. Like I was saying, everything I seemed to do at that point after, like, graduating, when I was working in Offspring and sort of reaching out to different companies. It was all one thing seemed to lead to another. It was like my first job at the sugar-free TV that led to me finding out about the network, and then being on the network was the thing that got me into the BBC. But whilst all that was sort of going on, I was picking up other little bits of running jobs, like runners jobs on productions, on like Adidas campaigns. It was like Tea campaigns in Manchester, and it's all just word. It's sort of, when you do one thing, I feel like it's a bit like dominoes with this industry. You know, it's sort of the getting my foot in the door and getting that first ever job at sugar-free TV in the office the day that I knocked on. From there, one thing sort of went to another. But up to that point, you know, it was difficult. I remember knocking on the doors, like I said, every company in Manchester, and 95% of them never get back, but you just go around and you sort of do it again. And it is that sort of like the rejection or the failure or not hearing back, you just have to not even think twice about it, because it's not personal, you know, it's sort of just keep going. And yeah, that one thing sort of led to another. And then when I started on the work placement, I remember hearing about it in January 2018. January 2018, remember them call me up saying, you know, you've got on a work placement. It's from February. It's at the start of February till the end. It was a full month. So it was 2 weeks like helping in the office on the Commonwealth Games. And then it was 2 weeks being a runner on the actual Commonwealth Games event when it was on in 2018. And I was still working at the time. I told my boss in Offspring, who was great with me, like he's still a good friend now. He basically was like, I said to him, I was like, oh, like, got a BBC. He knew I wanted to be working there for so long. I said, oh, am I all right just to work weekends? And I still, you know, so I didn't want to drop that job and everything all at once, because, you know, it could have been just for 4 weeks at the BBC. I was going into it being like, that's it now. This needs to lead to something else. I had that mindset. I was like, I need to find something else in this 4 weeks in the BBC. But yeah, still had my job at Offsprings at the weekend. So it was a busy old month. I was working every day for the month, but it was so worth it. It was like I said, I just made the most of that opportunity. I had the 4 weeks there. I thought, I've got to give 100% everything I do. I remember running a script from like one building to where the studio was, which was in another building. And I was like running across like the piazza, and I got a script there super quick, and all the directors, oh my God, it's so quick. It's the little things, you know, sometimes, you know, it's just like something like that. It's just, I don't know why I was running across, to be honest. I just felt like I was just rushing across, and like something so simple, but people are like, oh no, you've done that, like, good, you know, like making teas, but like having it, like I was with the presenters, and it was Claire Bolden at the time and Gabby Logan, and I just being friendly, having those conversations, like having a bit of a laugh, not being down the throat asking them questions, but just being friendly. And that is actually all it's about. Asking people, you know, giving everybody, you know, who wants a tea, and just those little things, and just being yourself and sort of being sort of friendly person and being helpful goes a long way. And just, I was doing that with, I think, rather than just all around the talent or all around the executive producers, I think if you're good with everyone, you treat everyone the same who you're working with, that is the key to it for me, I felt, because sometimes your next job doesn't come from the most senior person that's on the production. It's sometimes the medic, you know, sometimes the person that you've been having conversations with next to the coffee van, but you know, they'll still be working in the industry for 20 years. They might be working in a department that you think, you know, they're not going to get me another job, but they do, you know. It's sometimes just about being sort of a friendly and approachable to everyone. I think that did help me in that sense, because it was just that other people were like, oh, well, I hear there's a job coming up in radio. And there's, I've worked with someone in radio, and they're looking for like a production management assistant, which I said before is sort of assisting the production management team in terms of setting up productions and booking things, booking transport, you know, arranging everyone's travel, booking studios. And someone was like, oh, they're doing like a freelance contract for like 3 months downstairs, I'll put your name forward. It's always a bit like that, sort of, you know, you keep that, you sort of got to keep the sort of, just like I said, being approachable and get on with everyone, because you just don't know, like, everyone's got contacts at the end of the day. And so yeah, that sort of went from there. I ended up actually getting 3 months working in radio sport after that as a production management assistant. So I was thrilled, really, because for me, I was like, oh, I'm 3 months at the BBC. Still kept my job at Offspring. I remember I was doing like a shift at the weekend. So I was, for about 4 months, I was working at least 6 days a week. But wasn't bothered. I was enjoying it all, really. And then because I've been doing this production management assistant job then a few months, there was vacancies. There's always vacancies at the BBC. They come up once, twice a year, sometimes more frequently than that. And a lot of it is, I don't know, when you're in the BBC and you've got the work under your belt, people, it's 25 million times easier to get the job than if you've never worked there before and you're just applying for it with no experience in the industry. Like, it's just so tricky. If you've worked in a broadcast environment and you're an external person, that's great, that's easier. But if you haven't, it's so difficult. And I've been doing that job then for 3 months. The job came up on TV football as a production management assistant. So that was like the junior person within the TV football team. It was a job where you'd work on match the day at the weekend with like the guests, the presenters. You'd be getting food for them, you'd sort out the travel, and you'd go to the FA Cup games. You sort of like a bit like a PA at the weekend. You're looking after all like the presenters and stuff. Then in the week you're doing like a lot of the planning, booking things, booking travel, help set up shoots. And that job came up. It was a year contract. I thought that's my dream job. I thought that is all, that was perfect for me, working on football. And I got it because, I was so passionate about it. I knew I wanted to do. I knew it's just exactly what I wanted to a T, and had this experience already from the work experience, from the stuff in radio, and I got it. And then I was like, that's it, I'm sorted now. But that's it. The rest, we'll work on the rest. I will work on the next steps. Even though I knew, like I was saying to you, I wanted to go into that content making. I wanted to be making content, the editorial side, but it don't matter. When you're in the BBC, the rest comes after. You sort of can mold your own story there. And yeah, so I don't know. At that point, I think ever since I was younger, I was like, I just had this ambition. I want to get in the BBC, but when I was there, I want to be able to make great content. And I just think making great content, like you are now, like sort of, it's about, being able to, for me, I was like, I want to be able to film, learn how to film. I want to be able to like produce.
You've been listening to Inkylesconvo.
I want to be able to present content, because I think I'd love to, I even still in my free time now, I'm like, would I like to do something like what you're doing now? You're sort of doing a bit of a podcast and podcast. It's still something that I think I would like to do, just as a bit of a side hustle on the side of me doing my job. You're still making content, I just think, yeah, that's sort of.
I was actually going to ask you that. Would you ever do that? Would you ever do just because we spoke about it, and just because, like, literally just because would you ever do like I don't know, podcast shows, or like become something like even just like even like like
in my spare time, yeah,
that's what I think of the word, because influencer, that's the word. And would you ever become an influencer? That type, is that, would you like to be that forward in content, or would you like maybe like take a step back, or what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, you know what, I think I would. I know I would. I always have wanted to. I've just never really made the steps to do so. Obviously, I've spent the last 4 years being quite focused on getting in the industry and getting a job working in content, but I've not really done anything for myself in that sense, and thought, all right, how do maybe do I build my own profile, or so do I start my own little show on YouTube, or build something up that way? I do. I just haven't. I guess I haven't done it yet, and that's, for me, is a bit of a. And that's sometimes I'm like, I need to make it happen. And I do think, I've recently got a bit of like a goal planner and stuff, and set my goals up for my career and my day job and all that. But I've also put on there as well to do something a bit like, to do a bit of maybe a bit of presenting, and if that is sort of creating my own, I don't know, do a bit of a podcast or YouTube. I don't know. I sort of haven't navigated how I should best do that. But it is something I'm looking to do. Yeah. You
should, yeah. I encourage, to be honest with you, I'm one of those people that, like I said, with those two names I mentioned, and Billy, another guy, he runs what's it called? Currently Country. Shout out to you guys. It's like a country radio station in the UK. It's actually really cool. I never knew nothing about country music, and then he introduced me to it, and I was like, it's actually quite good. Cool. Yeah, it's quite good. So he does that, and I said to him, I was like, look, you may as well. Like the thing is though, it's free to do. Like obviously your time and things like that, and you'll obviously know how to create intros and things. So I mean, it's free that way to do. So you have the talent. It's just about like, the only thing I say to people is it's time consuming. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, so like does it really matter? You know, that's the thing.
Yeah, and there is that thing like you're saying, and what we were sort of going back to before, it's that barrier of like, you're putting yourself out there to the world, and you're opening yourself up to, I won't say criticism, well, obviously criticism, but also judgment, and like sometimes, well, what your friends think, and they're like, it is that sort of, and that's the only thing I think holding me back, which sometimes annoys me, sometimes, is that I do care what people think in every aspect. Sometimes that for me has been it's been the best thing for me, but also my worst enemy, because the fact that I care what I think is that I always like, in a work setting and everything else, like I care what people think. So I do try and please people, and I give 100% to things that I do. But at the same time, like I said, when it comes to doing, I don't know, putting yourself out there to the world and content or influencing, you are like opening yourself up to that more criticism, and opening yourself up to be vulnerable and hurt a little bit. But when you overcome that, I guess, I'm sure that is a great thing, because technically I've already done that, like I said with the article, in a way I put myself out there in that sense and had that criticism and took that on. But yeah, there's something when you do something, you're trying something new, a bit different, if it's a show, podcast, or whatever, you are at the end of the day, you're learning, aren't you? And you're sort of taking them steps, and it's a new experience, and you are going to grow and get better at it. It's just that being willing to stick to it. And yeah, sort of, I guess it is a goal for me to do that as well.
Good, yeah. What I'll say is, on the as you were saying, the criticism side of stuff, I think the way I learned like I said before, I compete, so like I use the gym a little bit to like take frustration out and anger and things like that. But obviously I realize sometimes that's not a good thing, because if you end up having like a really good time, for example, the way I always say to people is that you never live with frustration or anger, because obviously you end up, if you haven't got that anger there, you've got that, there's no like oomph, there's no like nothing to kick you. But the way when it comes to like social media and stuff, I honestly, the best way I explain it to people is upload your content and then read the comments, and then but when it hits a certain point and you're starting to feel it, it's easy enough just to put your phone down. Like it's it's the most easiest answer I can give you. But and at the end of the day, none of these, and another thing is that always remember that no one that comments, to an extent, obviously friends, family, things like that, but like most people that give you negative comment don't actually know who you are.
Yeah, so true.
And if they met you in the street, like we were saying earlier on, they're probably the nicest person ever to your face. That's the crazy part of it. But I'd like to finish off on some like kind of cool questions, to be honest. But what a couple of questions there. What made you, I know we've talked about like your past and what you've done and all that sort of stuff, and you were obviously into football and sport and things like that, but what made you not want to just do media like what most people, like what I currently do, like so I do it on the side of everything else? What made you literally I don't want to do the 9 to 5, I just want to concentrate on that? What was that type of thing
that wanted me, as in like what made me want to commit basically everything to that?
Like what made you want to go media versus like a
as a career path,
as another career type thing?
I don't know, it's rather than that standard 9 to 5. I think growing up, you sort of, it's because I never really knew a lot of it. Maybe it was that like mystery and stepping into growing up. I didn't really know anyone that did a job that maybe wasn't sort of like a sort of standard 9 to 5. And I just sort of was like, and I used to just hear people all the time, or just like, don't want to do, don't want to feel a bit mad about sometimes the job and just being living for the weekend. I remember always hearing that phrase, like, just living for the weekend, and I just like, I don't want to live for the weekend. Don't get me wrong, I love the weekend. I love like going out and socializing and doing them things, but I sort of just wanted to be like, to be fair, my dad was a firefighter and he loved his job throughout all his career, and that wasn't a sort of standard 9 to 5. He worked weird and wonderful hours, but he used to always like say, just talk about enjoying his job. And I was like, I just wanted to do something a bit different as well, and sort of just commit something where I thought is this look exciting? Does it, it seemed pretty cool, going to events and like people glorify the media sometimes to see it as like a shiny sort of old great fancy thing. Don't get me wrong, there's some real, it's not all as it seems. There's days where you're like, oh crikey, but I don't know, I guess it seemed appealing and cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that was it really. Yeah, I just thought
live life like a completely different way. Yeah, I feel honestly this is. I think it comes down to, at the end of the day, like as you had said yourself, you had your dad who kind of like was like loved what he did, so you've kind of had that background, which is awesome, to be honest. But when it came to obviously everybody's overcame obstacles. Like it doesn't matter what it is, professionally, personally, I don't know, animals. There's all the type of categories there is. There's so like say when you like had obstacles come your way. I don't know, you don't have to mention any specific one, but when you talked about like when you went over obstacles, how did you, once you had come over them and like jumped the hurdle, as they say, how did you then use what happened in that one and then implement it in the next obstacle and things like that?
I think I overcame a recent sort of obstacle last year, and it was, I was doing a job as a researcher, it was TV football for like a few months. So I was doing this job, and the job was then, they was making it, so I was doing it as like an attachment, and they were doing it, it was basically going to be a permanent role that they were sort of advertising for. And realistically, I was like hands-on, almost like a favourable candidate, because I've been doing the job, I was really well liked within the team, blah 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 blah. So you're like, okay, I'm in a good position here. I didn't get the job because I actually did the worst interview ever, and for many different reasons why you give a bad interview. Like I was exhausted, I've just moved house, there were actual life things around it that I was like pretty, jobs were really busy at the time, I've over prepared for this interview, I really wanted it, and just on the day we just really crap, right? And everyone has that, everyone has bad days, everyone can't be like 100% on form every day, and they couldn't give me the job because the interview was just so bad. I just froze up, I just wasn't really present, and I remember being so devastated when I get a job. I thought, it got to the point I was like, that for me was just the next step, that was it. I had to do that job permanent, it was within the team I've been working on, and I just, it was just like, I was devastated. And I just thought, what am I going to do? What is next? And I actually ended up getting an assistant producer contract from a team I've been working on previously in the digital team. So an attachment, which was obviously like a job hire, it's like a band higher than that, like a job band hire. And then after that, ended up getting assistant producers section of contracts working on TV football again, because I'd already had this AP experience before that. And so obviously, I picked myself up essentially. And how I picked myself up was, I was very much like, I could have just sat back and was like, felt defeated from, the business that had supported me for all this time, and people were like, supporting me to get this job, and realistically, like, you feel defeated because you're like, stupid, like I'm the right person, I've been doing this job, like why do I have to interview for a role that I've already been doing, all that, but you can't criticize the way that the company runs, because it runs, the BBC works in a way that's fair to everyone. You can't criticize that, even if it don't work for you on one occasion, and that's fine. And I sort of just looked at it and was like, right, how can I make this the best I can? How can I learn from that? Learn in terms of how I can react better in interviews, and also I was a bit like, no, you know what? I know I haven't done anything wrong here. Maybe I wasn't confident on the day. How can I just pick myself up and sort of go again and just apply for things again? Just go for other jobs and go in there and learn from what you've done wrong in the past. And like I said, I ended up getting that assistant producer contract in digital, and then I ended up getting this assistant producer job on TV after that recently, and obviously now I've got a permanent AP contract. And for me, it was that mentality. And sometimes, I'm quite a believer in like what's meant to be will be. I don't actually feel, sometimes you're like, I don't feel that job was right for me. Like I'm enjoying the jobs I've done this last year so much more than when I was doing the researcher's job. And sometimes something's just not a right fit. Like, you can invest everything in, like, that's for me, this is all I see is the next step. And, you know, for some reason or another, like, you don't get that, or it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes you just got to have faith in, like, the way that things play out. And sort of just, if you keep going and pick yourself up straight away and don't give up on the process, what you were working on, I think the next thing it'll make you realize, actually, you know what, that's why that didn't work out. And I think that's always the case. Sometimes people pick, you know, a knockback make people give up on that job as a whole, or that industry, or, you know, it can make you give up on, I don't know, me, for example, working editorially in TV, because that was one of my first editorial jobs. And, you know, some people can make people just think, oh, it's not for me, that maybe I'm meant to be working in production management that I was working in before. I did think that. There were some days I was like, oh, actually, am I naturally good at, like, content making? You know, I really did have those doubts last year, because I'd had loads of editorial experience up to this point. And like I said, it was just a case of that. I was like, actually, no, keep going. You know, have that faith in yourself, keep going, you'll learn. Everyone can learn, you know, you adapt, you grow in anything that you do, and it actually did work out for the best. So yeah, sometimes it's just keep going and have faith in the system, really.
Yeah. Honestly, an awesome note to end on as well. Great advice for people that, because, like, people do feel like they kind of get, like, beaten up, and they're like, they end up going, like, I don't know, maybe working like a normal job would be so much, as they quote, so much easier, like something you can just go out and live in and things.
It is, but and this and just to add a quick before we go, sometimes there is times where you're like, I'm like, you know, my other half, Becca, like, she'll work hard at a job, and then she'll just, you know, they'll get given a promotion, say, and work hard again and get given a promotion. And sometimes in the media industry and working in the BBC, it doesn't work like that. You don't just get given a promotion on you know, just there you go, here you go, you've been working hard, give you a pay rise, etc. You got to apply for things at the BBC. You've got to apply for attachments and jobs. You know, you're always having to do well at your job, but then you have to do well in an interview as well. And there's those added things that do make you think sometimes, oh, you know, it would be so much easier in a normal 9-to-5 job, but very often you get reminded, you're working on the Winter Olympics tonight, or you're at an amazing event, you're going to a live event, and you're working on a major event, the Olympics, the Euros, and you're like, actually, you know what? Money and easy life, it's got nothing, you know, on this sometimes, because when you do something, you're making content that, you know, millions of people can see. You're like, actually, yeah, you know what? That's why I don't have, you know, the 9-to-5, because the thrill that you get does outweigh sometimes all the other stuff. So yeah.
I actually forgot to ask you a question as well. So before we go, your I won't say 5-year plan, because, like, that's so, like, cliche. I mean, my auntie, before she passed away, used to always, like, what's your 5-year plan and all that sort of stuff. Like, what would you say is, like, you know, your future plans would be a greater one, like, when it comes to, like, career and things like that?
Career and things, I mean, yeah, I'm sort of on a good path now, assistant producer. Want to, like I said, just grow as much in that as I can, get some filming experience, get lots more editing experience, producing, directing the content. One of my own side of it, like I said, build my own persona, if that's doing some sort of, like, you know, build my own, like, I don't know if it's podcasting or whatever, you know, my own, like, influencing side. Sort of start something in that way, do a bit of presenting, grow that, and 5-year plan, hopefully see something progress in that side of it. But also, ideally, like, want to be producing show, you know, essentially producer, you're like producing programs. So you might be producing a program, or you're producing an event, and or like, you know, you're producing a major event, and hopefully be at that point where I'm, you know, I've got the experience in my belt that I'm doing something like that, and hopefully also making the most of what the BBC's got to offer. Maybe do a couple of might do a placement here in another department, just to learn about what else the BBC does. And for the foreseeable, see myself at the BBC, but who knows further down the line, you know, I'm definitely I want to explore the most of what the industry, you know, I want to explore what the industry offers, and just essentially want to be a great content maker and have lots of different experience. So
yeah, the fact is as well is that the as I said before, with Media City and things like that, the industry is only growing, like Paramount and things like that. A lot of your big record labels, obviously Universal is more than a record label, but Universal is another one. They've just invested billions in the UK, both of those companies together, to build new industry. So it's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger for people in media, to be fair.
100%.
But
100%.
yeah, and then before we do end, I always like to get, I know I've said that maybe 3 times now, I'm really bad for doing that, but I always like to obviously ask if I can get people's social media, so maybe people who can follow you along, follow your journey and things like that. So
yeah.
What is your social medias, whether that be like, you know, Twitter, Instagram, or anything, or
Twitter, Instagram, I'm on everything. I am at Keely, so Keely. People always put in the extra E, but yeah, at Keely, Keely, Watson 95. So at Keely Watson 95 is pretty much my handle on everything. So yeah.
Awesome.
Look it up.
And as everybody, thank you very much for watching. It does mean a lot, and especially listening. Like the listening side of stuff is going crazy, which is great to see. But anyway, yeah, thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you again, Keely. Thank you for your time.
Nice one, Carl. Good to meet you.
You've been listening to Inkylesconvo.